know everybody knows. Got to keep.
You don't have to be retired to receive tax-free income. The problem is the vehicles that we've been conditioned to believe to help get us there were never designed to produce income.
Got to keep going. What you want to be going, you will see. It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be going, you will see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony. Ooh.
If you had a machine in your garage and all you had to do was put a quarter in it and it printed out $100, put a quarter in it, printed out $100, would you ever stop that machine from running?
I know everybody knows.
So what if you use that job that you hate as leverage to fill your machine so they can create income for you, so you don't have to worry about income?
You know where the world is gonna go. I know everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going.
Welcome. We heard in the chat already that some people had a hard time finding this. So if you're here, we are so grateful that you found us early so you could jump in on the jam for the intro. All right, well, get in here because we've got the fifth strategy tonight we're going to talk about. And we're pretty eager to roll all of this out because a lot of people wonder, like, do I have to have a first position HELOC in order for these strategies to work?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, we see you in the chat, fam, and we appreciate you so much. Hopefully everyone got the notification eventually, right? Let's get started. Did you know that nearly 70% of American homeowners have substantial home equity, but are still burdened by debt? It's because they don't know how to use it. What if you could use that leverage and that equity to achieve financial freedom much faster? Tonight, we're going to walk through the fifth strategy for paying off your home and an additional $20,000 in debt within 6 to 7 years using a second lien HELOC. Some call it second position HELOC. Whether you're new to this concept or you're looking for advanced tactics, this session right here is packed with valuable insights to help you take control of your financial future. So if you've been searching for solutions, what you'll see us unpack tonight it's just one of many here on the channel. We say it all the time. There's many ways to 10, and this is just one. So if you're new here, hi, we're the Stidhams, and our goal is to help you
Get self-directed.
All right. Well, and to do that, they have to learn how to navigate these strategies. I mean, that's really one of the most important pieces. When you get these calls, some people are going, I can't do this because I'm debating whether or not I should let go of my interest rate and get a first and trade it for a HELOC, right?
Right. And here's the thing, like just today, like literally maybe a few hours ago, I had a conversation around this exact topic. And it was, hey, I'm in a great financial position, got equity, I have cash flow. Should I get a first position home equity line of credit? I only owe, I want to say it was like less than $50,000 on a mortgage. And so that was the question. And I think I call them good problems. It's a great place to be in because you have options. And I don't really think there's a wrong answer. It's just really more about the goal. Like depending upon the goal should determine what action you should or shouldn't take. So this is, I think it's a great discussion to have. And let me preface things here. Let me first apologize. There is no reason why tonight's live should be, as you said it very, very well, jam-packed. There's a lot of information in this live. I was going back over it, and I keep hearing Sequia in my head going.
She's a household name now,
right? I got her in my head going, explain, like, because I'm ready to fly through. And as I went through it the first time, I went, I can't fly through it. And so there's going to be a lot of information. Some of it we've covered before. Some of it we haven't. Some of it we haven't given as much detail. So I'm excited about tonight. But yeah, I apologize for all of the information I'm about to fire hose you with.
And I'm going to apologize for the tech issues we thought we solved all weekend long. We worked really hard on this. You're freezing up, so
Yeah, don't know.
Don't know what to do. Uh, just not really sure what kind of tech virus is going around here, but we keep trying to solve it. So as soon as we get the antidote, we'll let y'all know. But we were really looking forward to no tech issues. We weren't even going to mention it, that we fixed it or did anything. Okay, well, we're just going to keep on. Is your settings on high? Just make sure that the wheel real quick before we get in so that you guys don't have to see him freeze the whole time. Just hold on a second.
Same place we've been.
Dang it. Okay. All right. We'll troubleshoot later. You ready to jump in?
Of course.
Okay, so how to pay off your mortgage in 6 to 7 years plus $20,000 in debt. Can you do it with a second position HELOC? Yes, you can, and we're about to get into it.
So what I want to do is just make sure we recap a little bit of what we've been discussing. So if you remember over the last, I'll call it few weeks, we've been discussing the same topic. It's Bailey, 38 years old, started out with, I forgot you were in the shot. I'm sorry.
No, I'm out. I'm out.
Okay. Bailey, 38 years old, came to me with a fair amount of, I'll call it negative cash flow. And so in kind of breaking down and identifying the numbers and looking at some things that were identical and, moving some things out of the way and making some adjustments, we were able to get to a place where, okay, cash flow was a lot better, sitting at positive cash flow. And the objective was, hey, I've got some goals. Some of my goals consist of paying off my home, paying off that debt that's been bothering me. But the big goal is, what? I want to be able to supplement my income. I've got a nice pension. I feel like it's going to be okay, but I know it's not going to be enough to help me to be able to retire. So I'm 38. I'm fairly young. I want to get to a point where I can, dump some funds into some type of secure compound interest account so I can start generating wealth. And so we went down the path of eliminating debt using velocity banking and leveraging a personal line of credit to be able to address a fair amount of debt in about 30 months. What we wanted to do and what we did last week, because of Father's Day, because what we did last Wednesday was we kind of broke down what it looks like to kind of intervene with a first position line of credit at this stage, meaning paying off 20 months of this debt. And then from this point forward, getting a first position HELOC and kind of jumping into leveraging that first position HELOC to be able to drive down some debt. And we kind of talk about goal. We talk about it a lot. And it may look one way to you, but in truth, when you peel back the layers, it's structured or it's built something differently. Meaning it always starts out, hey, I have this immediate goal. And then once I free up some cash flow, I've got a new goal after that. And then my ultimate objective maybe is to pay off the home. But in truth, all of our goals are a little bit more complicated than that. Get there. Meaning it may start out as one thing, but it may end up being something totally different depending on what the objectives are. And in this case, we're talking about putting ourselves in a position to where we can achieve that $60,000 in additional income on top of what we expect to have at retirement. So we've got a little time, but the bottom line is that's the objective. And so on Wednesday, what we kind of walked through, this was the kind of this foundation or the structure. On Wednesday, we got a first position home equity line of credit for a certain dollar amount. This dollar amount was, well, all right then.
Here we go. You know what we're going to start? We're going to start tech bingo. That's what we're going to start. We're going to start tech bingo, and the first person to win the bingo for the tech issues wins a prize. I'm with it. We'll just gamify it, right? You guys in? What's the prize? Something, some sort of tech? They're like, we don't want your tech. We don't want tech that comes from your house. What are you talking about? We'll ship it from Amazon. Maybe that's what we should do. Okay, well, we have Save to Serve in the chat and said, been trying to increase my cash flow, but getting caught up with most of the replays. I would love to know, because we say all the time, like there's many ways to 10. What are the different ways that everyone has worked on or have success with increasing their cash flow? For some people, that may mean adding in a side hustle or extra income, right? And for others, that could mean they were able to reduce debt, they were able to free up payments, and that's how they were freeing up cash flow, right? Instead of just adding to cash flow. But what if it's like not just this or that, right? What if it's this and that? Do we need a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you keep working on that. What if it's this and that, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because if $500 a month could have, or more a month, could have that much impact, we don't talk about this a lot here on this channel, so we'll just talk about it right now while he's doing that. We, matter of fact, just let me know when you're ready, okay?
Gotcha, sweetheart.
Okay, so we talk a lot about reducing payments and really just working with where you are and what it is that you have. I think that's a powerful place to start, because working with what you got and being able to maximize where your leverage is, that really was it where we had to start, right? Because there wasn't a way to add more income. The results that we have are from the income that we were getting. We didn't make any more money, so we know it's possible for people to do this, which is why we don't preach you have to add more income. However, we don't really talk about it too much. Adding more income and how much faster you can achieve your goals. Now, right now, that could mean switching jobs, right? That could mean advancing in a career or changing careers. There's a lot of people who are doing that because the income potential just is not going to get them to their goal. Have you had some of those considerations? In my Facebook, I was having a conversation with an old friend who is contemplating moving completely out of state just to reduce the cost of living and have access to different jobs. I think there's a lot of people in that position who are contemplating that. Or is that like a non-negotiable for you? I would love to know. Zaid is jumping in as the tech support. Do we need to? Okay. We'll just have tech hour right now. Zaid, we have tried different cameras. We've tried different cables. We've tried different computers. We took his equipment, put it on my computer just to see if it was the same thing. We've tried a different platform even over the weekend just to try to understand, like, is it the platform? What's the deal? Obviously, this vibe board has nothing to do with the platform. Maybe we're haunted. I don't know. Do you guys believe? Do you guys believe in tech ghosts? Maybe that's what it is. And there's somebody here who loves debt and hates financial freedom. They're just haunting us. And that's why they're trying to stop us from sharing all of this great information.
Yeah, if only
It's got to be.
If only it was that easy.
Yeah, it's got to be that, because what else makes sense at this point? Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. We ready to jump back in?
Of course.
Okay. Reset and scene. Here we go. Mm-hmm.
So as mentioned, the moral of the story is it's really about the goal. And so from the perspective of last Wednesday, what we kind of highlighted was using a first position home equity line of credit at 11.25%. And in the process, grab this real quick. And in the process, addressing about $165,000 in debt. And we did it in a fairly short period of time, to be honest, and kind of looked a little bit like this. Let's see here. Using the first position home equity line of credit for around $165,000. And in the process, we paid off the home and also the line of credit that we were using as a debt tool. And in the process, it took us about 92 months to be able to do so. And in cash flow, we ended up increasing our cash flow to about 27, 28 a month, and using that or leveraging that to be able to accomplish our goal. So again, it was a pretty, I'll call it clean process. And we kind of ended here last week on how much interest was actually paid over time. And in truth, we covered a couple different scenarios. One was paying off the home and the line of credit. Another was adding an additional line of credit, which caused the cash flow to also increase. And then one was also, what if we waited till all the debt was paid off before we actually started this process? And the last one was, what if we did what Dave Ramsey tells us to do and put the extra cash flow onto our mortgage and not even worry about paying off any of the debt at that time, meaning focus solely on the mortgage. And the bottom line is there's a huge difference in time. This is what if we just simply paid the mortgage as normal. It would take 360 months or 30 years to be able to pay off. But the bottom line is it's easy to see which options were the best. But when you really dig into those details and you look at how much interest was actually spent over time, what we learned was, in truth, they are all very similar. When you add the interest that you are already paying on the home against the interest that's also being paid with these strategies that's being used, in truth, they all add up to about the same amount. The difference the difference is when leveraging and or using a line of credit is how much flexibility, how much autonomy, how much liquidity you have in case something happens. Meaning, as you pay down the line of credit, there's now room available for you to be able to use those funds for whatever you want. But if you were simply using your mortgage as normal, you have zero access to any of the dollar amount that's again, as you dump your extra income into your mortgage, you have zero space or zero room to be able to use any of it. And so tonight, what we wanted to kind of talk through was, well, what if we applied one more option? And that option is, instead of using a first position home equity line of credit, we used a second position home equity line of credit. And kind of before we can kind of jump into how to use a second position home equity line of credit, I wanted to make sure I do my due diligence around explaining what it looks like. But this is the scenario. We've got a home that appraised at about $345,000. The home was originally purchased at $285 with an interest rate of $425. And when we completed that 20 months of velocity banking that we've kind of talked through, we landed somewhere around $145,000 left, or as a balance of the mortgage. What we're looking at doing is using a chunking strategy, meaning we are not just going to pay off the mortgage in one swoop. We can argue back and forth around whether or not you could, because you can, but that is not the strategy that I'm using. I'm going to take a chunking approach, meaning I'm going to dump in a large sum, and in this case, about $45,000 to start. And then I'll dump in another sum after I've paid that $45,000 off. And what we're looking at doing is getting a second position home equity line of credit in the amount of $80,000. But if you notice the math, I have a second position home equity line of credit of 80,000, but I'm not using 85,000 at the start. I am not a fan of over leveraging myself. I'm not a fan of using all of the room if you have the room. From my perspective, this $15,000 that's not being used here, that can be your emergency fund. That is your savings. Because the objective or the goal is to leverage this line of credit as your debt tool. What does that mean? We're going to dump all of our income into this debt tool. We're going to allow that the cash flow that we've accumulated over time to be able to sit on this debt tool. But the question is, if we follow this approach, if we get a second position home equity line of credit, and notice the interest rate, 11.25%, if we get a second position home equity line of credit and we dump $45,000 onto the mortgage and we pay off the line of credit, what is our new cash flow? Well, we need to take these two items individually to kind of understand what that looks like. Let's start here. Where is this $20,762 even coming from? Well, again, if you remember, on Wednesday or over these last few weeks, we've been talking about this same, I'll call it strategy, or this same visual around paying off debt. We got a Navy, we started with a Navy Federal personal line of credit, and we paid off a couple of cards. And once we paid off these 4 cards, we only had 2 more cards to pay off. Once we addressed that, our line of credit increased in balance. And so now we are sitting here at the 20-month mark. Now at the 20-month mark, the only objective left is to pay off the line of credit. So what I'm going to do is rope this Navy Federal line of credit or personal line of credit into that second position HELOC, pay it off. And when I do, that dollar amount that's owed at this point is going to be absorbed by the second position home equity line of credit. And again, it looked a little bit something like this. We had paid this off in 20 months and we've got this dollar amount left. So all I'm doing is roping this dollar amount into the second position home equity line of credit and using our cash flow to then address the rest of the debt. So that takes care of this. But what about this $45,000? This 45,000 I am dumping into the principal of the mortgage. I've got a $145,000 balance on my mortgage. I want to take 45,000 and dump it onto the principal. What does that look like? And this is a piece that I don't know that we've discussed a lot. So I just wanted to kind of highlight what it means to be able to not necessarily pay off the mortgage, but we're going to dump a certain amount onto the principal and take some action. So if we're talking about a second position home equity line of credit compared to a first position home equity line of credit, I wanted to do my due diligence around explaining the difference between the two. And so in this case, we've got a balance on a mortgage. Again, we purchased the home at 285. Again, all I'm saying is this is what the home is worth. We purchased the home at 285. We have a mortgage balance of 145. The mortgage that we have with whoever the bank is for $145,000. What's most important to the bank? As it relates to this home, what does the bank care about? The bank only cares about that mortgage. Why? It's that mortgage that allows them to recoup what was spent on the purchase of the home. So this is how they make their funds. This is how they make their money. So from the bank's perspective, the only thing that's important to them is this mortgage. And so therefore, what's in first position as it relates to the bank? What's in first position as it relates to the bank is that mortgage. Now, anything after that, meaning anything above the mortgage would be considered a second position. You can have something in second position, something in third position, something in fourth position. But from the bank's perspective, the number one thing that matters to them is the balance on the mortgage. So that's always in first position. If we want to identify a second position home equity line of credit, how do we go about that? Well, in most cases, again, this varies because you can get a line of credit for many different percentages. But in most cases, and I'll zoom in on this a little bit, in most cases, if you're looking for a line of credit, most banks base it off an 80% LTV. What does that mean? 80% loan to value ratio, meaning based off what the home appraised at, they will offer you 80% of what the home appraised. So if the home appraised at 340, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
We really want to know what you're going to unveil for us tonight, Donnell.
It sounds like you're the only one that does, though.
We need to burn some sage around here for these tech issues. We have to get some. Jeez, oh Pete.
And I think I know what's happening here because I am moving pretty fast on this board. And a lot of times the board doesn't like it when I move pretty fast. So it's the board telling me to slow down, son.
Yeah, maybe we need to wire the board back into the internet instead of, yeah. We're trying different things. So tune in, stay tuned in, and tune in next time. And we'll have an Ethernet connection. We can test that.
There we go.
All right, here we go.
Yep. So again, in first position is the mortgage. In second position, in this case, is anything after that. Oh, let me grab my laser again. All right. So anything after the first position mortgage is the line of credit. And so therefore, again, as we're talking about a second position home equity line of credit, where does that come from? So it comes from this 80% LTV. So 80% of the appraised value, $345,000, is around $276,000. What that means is I have available to me from the bank's perspective, $276,000 of this appraised dollar amount is available to me to use. Now, does that mean they will write me a check for $276,000? It does not. Why? Because I've got this mortgage here. So what they're saying is, okay, your 80% LTV is 276. The max we will give you is once we pay off this mortgage, anything after that. And so what that means is because the mortgage is still in play and it is not paid off, what the bank is saying is, let's see here, this would be minus 145. So the difference between these two numbers, which is 131, I believe. What the bank is saying is anything above what it is you're paying meaning the mortgage. Once you take the mortgage out of that $276,000 dollar amount, that $131,000 is available to you from a line of credit perspective. And notice, I am not asking for $131,000. I am saying,
What are you saying?
I only want 80K. So out of the 131,000 that's available, I am only asking for 80K. Why? Again, I go back to, just because I have access to all of it doesn't mean I need all of it. And the last thing I want to do is put myself in an over leveraged position. Now, I could grab all 131 and just not use it. Like, there are many different options here, and I don't think there's a wrong answer. But my point is, I'm only asking for 80 because based off the cash flow, and I'll get into the cash flow in a minute, but based off the cash flow, I wanted to not put myself in an over leveraged position. And God forbid, if anything happens, I wanted my cash flow to be able to pay things off or pay things down in a timely fashion. What do I mean by that? Well, again, if the bank only cares about what's in first position, then let's say the economy takes a turn, and from the bank's perspective, they need to reduce some of the liability on their books. If the bank is looking to reduce some of the liabilities on their books, what are they going to come after first? Well, again, if the mortgage is in first position, 9 times out of 10, the bank isn't going to call my mortgage due because they know that's the only way they're going to get their money. But anything in this position, anything other than that first position, it's a on their balance sheet is shown as a negative. On their balance sheet is shown as a liability. This line of credit from the bank's perspective is a liability. So what I don't want to do is put myself in a risky position where they might call it due. Now, there are many different factors that would go into whether or not a bank would or would not call a line of credit due. My point is, I want to acknowledge that and just be conscious of it. And so therefore, make sure I'm not putting myself in a position to where if something were to happen, my ability to be able to maintain this line of credit is in jeopardy. So again, this is just me doing my due diligence around making sure I'm taking on a dollar amount that I can handle.
There's
Bottom line. Go ahead, sweetheart.
there's quite a few people who've asked this particular question too.
Absolutely.
Like, I only have this. I already have a HELOC, but it's only this much,
Yep.
and they're looking to how can I qualify, and if I do this today versus when I initially had done it, it's going to be a completely different interest rate.
Correct.
And the damage that you can do with a smaller HELOC, you can still have significant impact. So it doesn't mean that you have to have a bigger HELOC to have more impact.
And
it just go ahead.
ahead.
But no, but I'm glad that you're talking about this, because a lot of people assume that they need to go and get all of the equity out of their home and use all of their leverage at the same time, and that's actually not true. The strategy and how you're structured matters more, and your understanding of your leverage than the leverage that you actually have. Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So if you don't know how to use it, it doesn't matter how the size of your leverage.
Right. Understanding the strategy and also making sure you have a clear understanding of what your cash flow is to be able to address whatever the debt is in a timely fashion. Like, all of these things play a solid role. And so, so bottom line is, I chose 80,000 just because I felt comfortable with, from a cash flow perspective, Bailey wouldn't be putting themselves in jeopardy if they were to grab this $80,000. Again, knowing I have access to 131. But now let's talk about cash flow. Okay, so if I'm going to grab 80,000, and remember, 20,000 of that is going to pay off the PLOC. I've got another 45,000 that I'm going to use to address this 145,000. So let's talk about that a little bit. So let's come here. And again, I don't think I've covered this before. And that is, as of right now, let me move this over some. As of right now, where things are sitting, the current mortgage payment is $1098 a month. We are currently sitting in the 12th year of the amortization schedule, meaning out of 30 years, sitting in the 12th year, I've had this mortgage for 12 years. I've got 18 years left. So it's a balance of 145,000. I'm going to jump 45,000. That's my first chunk. I'm going to dump 45,000 out of this line of credit, and which means my new balance is now $100,000. Well, what am I going to do when I dump that 45,000 onto that the 45,000 onto the $145,000 mortgage, I am now going to recast this $100,000. But what does that even mean? What I'm going to do is now have my mortgage recalculated, because when I dump this 45,000 onto this number, can we agree that it changed where I was sitting on the amortization schedule? If I was at, let's call it year 12, meaning I've got 18 years left, can we agree that when I dump this 45,000 onto this number, this $100,000 moves me down the amortization schedule to something later? But what I want to do is recast my mortgage and put this $100,000 right back at this 18-year mark. When I do that, when I recalculate this $100,000 over these 18 years, what's going to happen is my mortgage payment of 1098 is going to drop. And when my mortgage payment drops, my cash flow goes up. So let's talk about what that looks like. So, sweetheart, if you don't mind, I want to jump over to the calculator.
Okay. Here we go.
See how my internet appreciates that or not.
Yeah. There is no calculator.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here we go. So what we have is, I'll make this a little bit bigger. What we have is $100,000 that we now are going to, there we go, $100,000 that we are now going to recast at that same 18-year mark using the same 4.25% interest rate. So all I'm doing is taking the 145,000 and recalculating. I'm not refinancing. I am not changing the interest rate. Matter of fact, I don't even have any closing costs. This cost in most cases is somewhere around, let's call it 100 to 350 bucks. It is not an expensive move, but with the results of the recalculation of my mortgage is pretty impactful. And I've kind of already done it. If I recalculate that $100,000 over that 18-year period, what ends up happening is my monthly payment drops from from $1,098 down to $664 or $663. So I went from $1,098 a month in my mortgage payment down to $663, which means I just picked up about $435 in cash flow. So, okay. Oh, come here. And again, there's a picture of it is down here. So I'll increase this a little bit as well. So notice, based off that change in my mortgage payment, I have a new amortization schedule based off that $100,000 and that new mortgage payment over the next however many years that are left. So if I've got 18 years left, so from year 18 on, it's what does 663 do? How long will it take to pay off? Now, the bank likes this. The bank sees this as a positive. Look at it from the bank's perspective. I had a $145,000 mortgage sitting at year 18. When I dumped in that 45,000, it dropped me down to a lower spot on the amortization schedule, which means I'm on pace to pay this loan off. And then I went back to the bank and said, hey, bank, I actually don't want to pay it off in a shorter span of time. Recalculate my mortgage for me. They think the clock just restarted at year 18.
Yep.
They don't realize what I'm actually doing is setting them up. Because I'm reducing my
Payment.
mortgage payment, I'm now increasing my cash flow, which will now give me more money to be able to pay it down faster. But they don't realize that, nor do they need to know it. But my point is, the reason this is not, I'll call it a refinance, or this is not a process that takes all of this work and effort, is because the bank sees this as a positive. They believe they have now locked you into this mortgage for even longer. Let's see here.
Yeah, I love that for them, that they believe that.
So we can slide back over to the vibe board, sweetheart.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
So my point is, when I dump this $45,000 onto the mortgage, I pick up, and I believe I'm right, I pick up another $435 a month in cash flow. Well, if I originally had $1,630, and now I just picked up an additional 435, that means ultimately my cash flow has increased. What has it increased to? Come here. So my cash flow has increased from 1630 plus 435, which ends up being, what is that dollar amount? I thought I had it written down here. Oh, there it is. It's 2065. So my cash flow has now increased to that 2065 per month is what's going to live on the debt tool paying it down. Again, what just happened here? Just to restate, I got a second position home equity line of credit for 80,000. I didn't spend all 80 because I don't want to over leverage myself. I took 45,000, dumped it onto the mortgage, recast it. I took 20,000, paid off that personal line of credit. When I did all of those things, my cash flow went up. It went up from 1630 to 2065. Now I'm going to use that 2065. I'm going to use Velocity Banking to now pay off this mortgage. I'm sorry, pay off this line of credit. But what does that look like? Well, let's focus on the first chunk. I got a $65,000 second position home equity line of credit. I made a chunk into the meaning I made a chunk into the mortgage and I paid off that line of credit, which caused the balance to jump up from the 80,000 that I was.
I don't know if that's your cable, maybe. I'm going to mute you for a second. If you could do your mic. Maybe it got loose. We'll tape it next time. We will super glue this sucker on here. How many new gear things can we buy? Okay, are we ready? You got to unmute yourself on the thing, I think. Let's cross our fingers.
How about that?
Oh, yeah, way better. Okay, carry on.
All right. So the first chunk that was made was for $65,000, and it takes us approximately 36 months, 3 years to pay off that $60,000. And again, that's that 20,065 in cash flow, chunking down or paying down this debt tool, this line of credit till around month 36. At month 36, what am I going to do? At month 36, I'm going to add another chunk. I'm going to chunk for a second dollar amount at month 36, and it's going to take me another 24 months to then pay that off. But how does that work? Well, let's look at chunk number 2. For chunk number 2, if you remember, I only used 65,000 for the first. And from my perspective, I'm going to continue using the 65,000. Why? I effectively was able to address or pay it down in about 36 months, which I thought was a decent time frame. So all I'm doing is taking an additional 65,000, and now the new balance on the mortgage. The mortgage was 100,000. It took me 36 months, which is 3 years. 3 years down the amortization schedule would put me right at about $80,000 on the mortgage. So now all I'm going to do is take 65,000, dump it onto the mortgage. So again, I'm on the amortization schedule. It started at year 18. 3 years later, I would be at year 15 on the amortization schedule. But what am I going to do? I'm going to dump $65,000 onto this 80,000, and then I'm going to recalculate the mortgage to put it back at year 15. Because when I dump this 65,000, again, can we agree? If I'm sitting right now at year 15 on the amortization schedule, if I dump 65,000 on, that leaves me at 15 grand, which means this home is pretty much paid off. But it's going to drop me all the way down to something way less than 15 years to be able to pay off this home. But I don't want to pay it off. I don't want to stay there because I don't want to continue paying the $663 a month. What I want to do is recalculate. I want to recalculate the mortgage and put it back at year 15. So what does $15,000 look like at year 15 on the amortization schedule? And I want to recalculate that math. Well, here's what we know. That dollar amount looks like, my new mortgage payment looks like $113 a month. I went from $1,098 down to $663, down to $113 a month on my mortgage. All through using a second position HELOC to dump into the principal and recast. So what does that do to my cash flow? Come here, do that. So what that does to my cash flow is it increases my cash flow from $2,065 up to $2,615, which means because I just added an additional $600 in cash flow almost, now when I go to pay off this second $65,000, it takes a shorter amount of time, which means now this portion of the this portion of the mortgage has now it is now taking me only 24 months to be able to pay off. So in a span of 5 years, I have addressed a significant amount of I guess a significant amount of the balance on my mortgage. I haven't paid it off, but I've addressed a significant amount, and my cash flow has increased upwards of $800 a month. Again, all in a span of 60 months. So I've addressed not the mortgage, I've addressed a portion of the mortgage, meaning I had two chunks. Each chunk took away a portion. So again, if this was the home and I was filling it up, maybe I addressed this much. I still have a small amount left on the mortgage to pay. If you haven't figured this out, me and my wife are both fairly petty. And so I like $113 a month for a mortgage payment. And the last thing I want to do is pay off this home. Why? The mortgage, the interest rate on this mortgage is 4.25%. I've got roughly 15 years at $113 a month.
Right.
I will drag out this mortgage payment as long as I can. Why? Because I get to go back to the well over and over and over again to grab a second position home equity line of credit. And from the bank's perspective, as long as I am actively working that line of credit and using it effectively and efficiently, there is no reason why they wouldn't allow me to have it.
Yeah.
Does
Well,
that make that's important? Because I don't know that I think people miss this from time to time. Go ahead, sweetheart.
no, go ahead. Finish.
No, that was it though. It was the objective here is I didn't mean to do that. So I'm making two chunks into this mortgage, and again, it's going to address that balance for a significant period. And in addition to that, I address the line of credit. So what does this look like? Well, I've got about 13 years left on the mortgage. What do I mean? If you remember, the second chunk started at year 15. It took me 24 months to pay off the line of credit. So in 24 months, I am now sitting at year 13, meaning I've got 13 years left on this home. What are the results at this point? At this point, I've got a line of credit that's empty. I've got a mortgage that has a balance of $12,000 on it. I am not paying this mortgage off. I am going to stretch this $12,000 out, $12,000 left on this mortgage out for the next 13 years. I am comfortable paying $113 a month. And I know that's interest being paid to the bank that I probably don't have to. So why would I do that? Why? Because I want access to this. I want to be able to go back because the home is going to continue, I'll call it increasing in value. Right now, it's appraised at $358. In 5 years, it may be $425. So if there are other actions that I want to take, if all of a sudden crypto blew up and I needed some liquidity to be able to go convert things over to a digital currency to be able to take advantage, I am now liquid enough to be able to do so.
This is not are you not considering all the things? So let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
Anne says, fluctuating variable rate on a HELOC. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hold on.
Yeah, but let's take them one at a time though.
Okay. Well, it's part two. Okay.
Amen. Part.
Then how can you forecast at the same rate after decades?
Okay.
So why do you trust it? And then also, how are you forecasting at all when the interest rate's variable?
That's where it doesn't matter the vehicle. What matters is the cash flow. It's the cash flow that destroys all of that. And let me give you an example. We have a first position home equity line of credit on our home. We got it 4 or 5 years ago. The interest rate on that first position home equity line of credit was less than 2%, like 1.2, 1.7, something like that. As of today, it's 7.97. But it does not matter. Why? Because we have the ability to leverage our line of credit and take advantage of higher interest opportunities and immediately pay the line of credit off through velocity banking because our cash flow is so high that we keep the balance down. So the bank might get $100 a month in interest. Might. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is because of the velocity of money. That's where velocity banking is so important. And that's also why, to your point around the variable interest rate, let's say I would have gotten all 276,000 of the line of credit because I had access to it, right? 80% of 358 was 276,000. Let's
Yep.
say I got a $276,000 line of credit. How much, and let's say there's a variable interest rate that every year it increases 0.5% or whatever that amount would be. It would take me a long time to address 276,000. This is why I only grabbed 80,000 because my math said at 1630 a month or 2065 a month or 2615 a month, which are the cash flow amounts. You do that math, how long would it take for me to pay off this 80 grand? And as long as I can pay it off within 24 to 36 months, I'm not over leveraging myself. So regardless of what the interest rate, and here's the other part, we get so wrapped up in interest, we miss the big picture. If it cost you 5% to borrow $1 from me, and you could take that dollar and go make 1,000. Again, it cost you 5% to borrow $1 from me, but you could take that dollar and go make 1,000. How many times would you come to me and borrow that dollar?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be unlimited?
Right.
But how many people go, why are you charging me 5%? Like, or better yet, how about it's 5% and it increases every year? The key
Right.
is arbitrage. This is how banks make their money. Banks make their money by loaning you a dollar amount and then or giving you a small interest rate on your dollar and then loaning it to the next person at a higher interest rate and they keep the spread. What if you treated your money like this? What this line of credit allows you to do, it allows you to have access to your cash. Allows you to have access to your liquidity to now go be the bank. Now, if you can't be the bank, don't do this. If you don't have cash flow, don't do this. If you have not done the math and if you don't know what your numbers are and you don't understand how quickly you can address a product like this, do not do this. Because all you're going to do is create a situation where you will become over leveraged. You'll put yourself in a position where the bank will call it due, and now it becomes a loan, and now everything is gone to hell. But the key is to understand the strategy. It is less about an interest rate, it is more about your cash flow. And it is less about the product, it is more about the strategy. Are you applying a strategy? Notice, I haven't even talked about the minimum payment due on this line of credit. So 11 point, and again, I'm not going to do the math, but let's hypothetically do it in our head. It's a
Okay.
$65,000 line of credit at 11.25%. So it's somewhere around 600 and some dollars a month. Divide that by 12, it's like $50 a month. It's all I owe on this line of credit. If I only pay $50 a month, can we agree I will never pay this line of credit off? But what am I putting on this line of credit? I'm putting all of my income, all 5812. When 5812 goes onto that line of credit, it immediately knocks the balance down $5,812. And then I pay bills from it, which means the balance goes back up. But my cash flow, that $2,000 in cash flow, that's 24 grand, 24 grand a year is knocking down the balance. So therefore, whatever that interest rate was, I'll call it protected from it because my cash flow eats up the balance so fast that the bank will never receive the interest that they thought they were going to receive. But I'm telling you, we get wrapped up in that a lot.
We have a couple more questions, but yeah, we have a couple more questions, so I'll just move to those. Let's see. Sequia says, I know we preach what's the goal, but What would you tell someone who is very confused financially and not sure what the goal should be?
Yeah. I think I had one of those calls earlier today as well.
Well, you talk to a
And
lot of people who call you like even with their spouse, right?
yeah, and I think the first step, because usually I ask a few questions, you can tell like the confusion oozes out, right? And it starts with questions like, what's your cash flow? And when you get I'm not sure, I don't know. I can't identify what vehicles would or wouldn't make sense if you can't tell me what's coming in and what's going out, right? You can tell me how much you make, but you can't tell me how much you spend. What that means is you have no idea as to what your cash flow is. So there's no mathematical equation or no magic potion I can provide you to help you achieve your goals until you understand what are your numbers. So maybe you don't know the goal. That's fine. We need to at least start, where are you today? Like, where are things today? And once we identify, you know what? My income looks like this. My expenses look like this. I've got these debts. All in all, I've got cash flow of about $1,000. My next question is going to be, where's that $1,000 going today?
But what's the goal? That's what she's asking. What if they don't even know how to set a goal, so you don't know what you're helping them achieve? And
No,
I
I
think,
get it.
yeah,
But understanding where you are today can help shape and shift what that looks like. Meaning, once you understand where you are, the next question behind that is, what are your meaning, do you plan to work for the rest of your life? Yes or no?
yeah.
If
Well,
the answer, right? If the
that's a
answer is
good question.
no, my first question behind that is, then what are you doing today to make sure you're not going to have to work for the rest of your life?
Right. And what if something happens to you and you cannot trade your time for money? Then what would happen?
Right. And so usually the next question behind that is, what do you have in place today? It's, what do you mean? Well, what I'm asking is, you have an income, you have a decent income because you have cash flow of $1,000. You have an income. If the goal is to not work forever, what type of, I'll call it, vehicle are you placing your money in today to help assist you when it comes time for you to decide, you know what, I no longer want to work, I'm ready to retire, whatever the case may be. What are those vehicles you're currently putting your money in? And usually it's, I've got my company's retirement account, right? And a lot of times it stops there. So I've got this 401k. Okay, let's continue peeling that layer back. How much is in that 401k today? Oh, I've got $100,000. Okay, that's awesome. How long have you been with that company? I've been with this company 20 years. Let's do some math. I've got $100,000 in my 401k. I've been with this company 20 years. So it's taking you 20 years to accumulate $100,000. When do you expect to retire? Another 20 years from now? Okay, let's say that $100,000 quadruples,
Yeah.
right? It took you 20 years to get 100,000, but let's just say these next 20 years, it's going to do way better than that. And so that means in another 20 years, you'll have 400,000. Hell,
Yeah.
let's say you have a half a million,
Yeah. Right. Make it
right?
make it real good. Yeah. Right.
And
Doesn't
and
matter.
and then my next question is, what does that half a million equate to in income? And again, if there's confusion about not understanding the goal, usually the response is, I'm not sure. Okay, what would you expect to have as income in 20 years if you have a half a million dollars in your company's retirement account? Whatever that number is, it pales in comparison to the actual amount that half a million dollars would generate. And we haven't even talked about inflation.
Right. Ooh, don't get me started.
But in truth, that half a million looks like 20 grand. Okay,
Yeah.
that's 20 grand taxable. What do you make today? You make more than 20 grand, right? Is 20 grand taxable in 20 years sufficient enough for you to be able to sustain your lifestyle?
It's
It is
not
not.
efficient enough today.
It
So
is
it won't
not.
be in 20 years, right?
So sounds like we need to start generating a goal so that we can get from where we are today to something greater tomorrow, to bridge the gap between this $20,000 that my company is going to be able to provide me, plus Social Security and times inflation and whatever that math looks like. But it usually starts there. And when you ask these questions, sometimes it becomes uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of people, they don't want to do the math because it feels so far out of reach anyway, that what is the point of just sitting with these numbers and feeling disappointed or feeling like you can't achieve that? And I think it comes down to the belief. We talk a lot about your relationship with money and what you believe is possible for you. And this creates these limiting mindsets that says, well, live for today, I'm going to spend it while I have it, or all of those, those types of situations. But this is the F around and find out equation, right? So once they get there, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, a lot of people are looking where they are right now going, if golly, if I would have had this information 15 or 20 years ago, where I could be in my life. Right now, if I would have known to apply this, I could quit my job right now. I could fire my job and I could have enough income to live for the rest of my life if I would have known how to properly structure the money that I was already making without making any more money, just making more use of the money that I was making so that that money can make its own money, right?
Right.
And I know that a lot of people feel that way, but it's what we believe. A lot of us are hanging around people who don't have these belief systems that this is possible. They don't want to have these conversations. It's completely taboo to talk about, but they're the same ones that when they fall on hard times or something serious happens in their life and they have no control because they do not have financial security, it suddenly becomes, what am I supposed to do? What is everybody else supposed to do? So now we're trying to help each other up, crabs in a bucket, right? We're trying to help each other up when we all could have been planning together and been solid and out of the bucket a long time ago. It's when you hit that point is not the time to start trying to climb out the bucket, right? When you get that diagnosis, when you cannot trade your time for money anymore or produce income, like it's hard to do it at that point. There are people who have still been able to do some amazing things, but using your time while you have it right now is the most impactful thing. So, Sequia, to your question about what do you do when you're having conversations with somebody who doesn't get it? Like they don't even want to talk about a goal. They can't even list a goal. They can't even think about what an actual goal, a productive, healthy financial goal would be. First, start talking to them about what their relationship with money. If this is a person that's close to you and you know that your boat can't go faster because they're in your boat and they keep standing up and rocking it or poking holes in it because they don't get it. They don't get that the boat needs to float and it needs to go, right? Then you're going to have to start with, let's talk about your relationship with money. Let's talk about what if. Let's talk about this topic because it is non-negotiable for me. This is important to me. And once you say that it's important to you and you make that declaration, all of a sudden, maybe you're the first person that's ever made that declaration or said that this is non-negotiable. Like with or without you, I'm going. That may make them go, well, I thought it was just okay to not talk about this stuff or plan for this stuff, right? I thought it was just okay to get off on whatever exit that life tells us to get off on. I thought that that's what most people were doing. I didn't know that it was an option for me to build wealth. I took that off. That's not in the cards for me. There's not a movie with my character playing in a scene in that role. And we're changing that, right? Tons of people are changing that. Tons of people in our community have already changed that. And the trajectory of their future and their lineage to come. So that's what I think it starts with mindset.
Let's be clear though, there's no magic wand.
Yeah.
Like there is no magic potion. It is not. I had this question reminds me of a conversation I had with a classmate of mine. And you can always catch her pictures on Facebook or videos on Facebook with her and her husband on somebody's island, on somebody's boat, having a great time. But when you peel back the layers but if you don't plan on working forever, what are you doing right now to make sure that does not happen? And it does not exist. But I'm living my best life. I'm having a great time out here. And so the assumption is I have to sacrifice having a great time to then focus on my future. And I disagree. That's where being able to leverage vehicles like this is so important. Because if you can put yourself in a position where you can leverage this vehicle, why can't I dump money into a vehicle that's going to produce a future for me and leverage this vehicle to also go take those trips? Versus the way trips are being taken right now is I make income, That income goes out and pays a bill. That cash that's left over. I take that cash. I go spend it on those great to haves, want to haves, those trips, those YOLOs. Now I have to wait till next month before the next check to come in and then repeat this cycle. Versus if all of my income was going into a vehicle and that velocity of money allowed me to leverage that money over and over and over again, get multiple uses out of the same dollar, then maybe I can not only do my YOLO with that same dollar, but take that same dollar and also be able to improve my future.
Man, but when you see the difference of what taking money out of your machine does, and you realize that the money dies the second that you take it out the machine, it's no longer making money for you. So it goes to die, like RIP money. So you realize that all of a sudden those trips or those things or that new shiny object type of thing is not as important anymore, because it's got to be very meaningful. Like you got to really want it to take it out and have that cash die. For us, that is absolutely the conversation at all times. It is, if we are going to take anything out, where is it going and is it worth it? So we're not saying don't enjoy your life. We're not saying you have to have these conversations and start judging people. It's once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then your decisions and your perspective just changes. We have a ton of more questions, so I want to get to those.
We also got a ton of more content.
Oh, okay. Would you?
Give me another question. That's all
Okay.
good.
All right. Basic Deb, thank you for joining us. I haven't seen her name before. My mortgage company will not let me recast a mortgage. I owe $97,000 and appraisal is about $345,000. What's the next option?
I was just having a conversation today about this exact topic because it's a VA loan. Their bank won't allow them to be able to recast their mortgage, but that does not mean you can't have access to a second position home equity line of credit. So I get it. The 97, like whatever it is you're paying as a mortgage payment, can't be adjusted. I can't fix that unless you get out of that product. Now, what I would say is, where are you in this amortization schedule? Let's say you are under 10 years, because 97,000 isn't an extreme amount. So let's say you're under 10 years. That means majority of what you're paying is going towards principal. Maybe the move, and again, I know this sounds strange, but this goes back to that earlier question around interest rate. I'm going to assume on that 97,000, you probably have a great interest rate. Let's call it 2.25%, like something silly. Maybe mathematically it would make more sense to get a first position HELOC, replace that 97,000, get something more closer to 200,000, pay off the mortgage. You have 100,000 available. You just picked up cash flow because you no longer have a mortgage payment, and you take that cash flow to then address and pay down whatever the debts are, improve the situation. Again, those are great words. And we have to identify what that math looks like. My point is, you're not out of options. You have a second position opportunity, and if you want to replace that mortgage, there's an opportunity to do that. But we do nothing without understanding the math and whether or not it mathematically makes sense. Because in some cases it may not. But yeah, it sucks when you're in this situation. I think one thing that I've learned to appreciate, though, VA loans offer a lot of incentives. So I kind of understand why they don't allow you to recast, because from their perspective, they feel as though, there's all of these other, I'll call it bells and whistles that comes with this VA loan. So, I kind of get where they're coming from, but yeah, it just kind of sucks. And there's really not much there you can do about the mortgage in general. But again, you do still have the second position line of credit option.
They're in the chat talking about how attractive a 2.25 interest rate is. You just mentioned that and people are like,
yo,
nice.
I'm telling you, I've had a lot of these conversations over the last few weeks, and they are out there.
Yeah.
And it's hard to give up. And that's why, because we haven't gotten there yet, I'm telling you, I'm petty.
Okay,
There is no way I would pay this home off. I'm going to let that interest rate ride out so that I have access to it. And if I'm you with that 2.25 and you're looking to be able to take advantage of something like this, do the same.
Yeah, and I put it in your profile. I don't know if you're married or single, but you could be basic Deb, but then throw in there long walks in the park. You know what I mean? Soft jazz, 2.25 mortgage rate. I'm just saying.
Bruh.
Her DM's about to blow.
Yeah. She ain't so basic. She's so basic. Okay. Don't let her fool you, folks. Okay. Well, we have more. Do you want to just
Yeah,
finish
let
the,
me get,
okay.
because here, and again, I apologized early on. There is entirely too much information that I'm covering, entirely too much. I just didn't know how else to go about it, and I blame Sequia. So just putting it out there.
Sorry, Sequia. Threw her under the bus. All right. Here we go.
All right,
Mm-hmm.
are we good?
Yep. We're
Okay,
good.
just want to make sure. So 13. So where are we? Again, we have an empty line of credit. We have a mortgage of about $12,000 sitting at about $113 a month, and we've got cash flow about 26.15. And so that's where we're sitting right now with 13 years left on our mortgage. But what does this look like? Well, I want to compare this against the other information that we had kind of talked through, which was when we look at total interest paid. So again, I'm too low.
Oh, my bad.
No, we're good. It's not you, it's me.
Chat's going to get me fired because I'm over
Um,
here.
So when we look at total interest paid, again, we've covered these different scenarios over the last few weeks. And what we're looking at today is this right here, meaning it took us 60 months using a second position home equity line of credit. How much interest did we pay during that period? And again, I've got the data. You can just take my word for it, or we can jump into the sheets. But the bottom line is, on the line of credit, on the second position home equity line of credit, spent about $24,000 over that 60-month period. But in addition, because I recast the mortgage, I am still paying interest on the mortgage. So there's about $13,000 in mortgage interest. So if we add those two together over that 60-month period, I've paid a total of about 37 grand. Again, compared to a first position HELOC, a first position HELOC, a first position HELOC, and dumping all of my money into my mortgage. Which one is better? And not only that, it's a second position HELOC of a lesser dollar amount. This first position HELOC, I want to say, was 165. This first position HELOC was 177. This first position HELOC was a little bit less than this one, but pretty close. But I got a smaller line of credit. I chunked into my mortgage, recast my mortgage, so I'm still paying mortgage interest. So even with the additional mortgage interest, this second position HELOC blew all of these out of the water. But if you remember the last few weeks, this isn't the full picture. Again, in most cases, we would stop here. We would say second position wins, game over. But we have to peel this back a little bit more. Why is that? Because this isn't the true, I'll call it, this isn't the true total interest picture. Meaning, there was a certain amount of interest paid up till I started this process. If you remember, in most cases, these started at year 12. In most cases, I think this one started at year 15. But I think in most cases, these started, meaning on the amortization schedule, this process started at year 12, which means there were 12, there was 12 years of interest being paid on the mortgage. So let's account for that. If from year 1 to year 12, I paid 87,875 in interest. When you add the improvement or the total interest paid using the first position home equity line of credit, it's still about 160, 170,000. When you go through these scenarios, it applies also to this one for today. And let me blow this up a little bit so we can kind of just dig into it a little bit. That 87,875 is the amount of interest that I had already paid into the mortgage. That first chunk of the first chunk of $45,000, the first chunk of $45,000, I paid a total of $14,000 in interest because I had a line of credit at 11.25. Going back to, I can't remember her name, but going back to, I am not taking into consideration the variable interest rate. I am still paying interest. Don't get me wrong. I know there is interest being paid. So during that first chunk, there was about 14,000. And in addition, I paid about 12,000 in mortgage interest as well. Then when I made that second chunk, there was about $10,000 over that 2-year period, 24-month period that I paid with the second chunk, and another $1,200 in mortgage interest. So when you add all of that together, in total, I still paid about $125,000 in interest. But compare that to these other vehicles. Still less, but I'm not done. We also have to account for the fact that I have not paid off the mortgage. There's still $12,000 left on this mortgage. So when I add the $125,000 that I've already paid, plus whatever, again, let's be honest, if I wanted to, I could pay that $12,000 off using the line of credit. But again, I'm petty. I'm not. My point is there's still $12,000 that needs to be accounted for. So when you add all of this up, this is the total interest paid. Here's my point. My point is it doesn't matter. I don't know that there's a true wrong answer here. You're going to pay interest back to the bank. The question is, how much leverage do you have when you do? If you just simply paid the mortgage as normal, you have zero access to the leverage. You have zero access to the line of credit. You are in jail. If you got a first position home equity line of credit, you're still paying about the same amount of interest. And again, when you add all of this up, it's sitting at about $132,000. It's less. Don't get me wrong, it is less than all of these, but you're still paying well over $100,000 in interest. The difference between my approach and the traditional approach is liquidity. It goes back to the goal. What was the initial goal? Bailey wanted to put himself in a position to where he could start generating income to be able to supplement his retirement when he was ready to retire, which means he was looking for about $60,000 a year. How are you going to accomplish that goal with continuing to dump all of your income into a mortgage that takes you 360 months to pay off? How? Again, 38 years old. In this case, 38 years old till age 60. 38 to 60. I'm sorry, not age 60. 38 years old. And now I'm 60 months later, 5 years later. 38 years old plus 5 years, right?
Yep.
So what does that look like? What does that breakdown look like? So again, I've got 13 years left on my mortgage. I've got an empty second position HELOC. I've got $80,000 liquid. I've got a mortgage of 12 grand. Again, I'm not paying that off.
Nope.
I've got mortgage of 12 grand at about $113 a month mortgage payment. And I've got cash flow. I've got cash flow of about $26.15. What is his goal? This is unique. And I don't know that we've ever covered this. So this is somewhat unique for today. He's now 45 years of age. He wants to max fund a SKIA. And this is what was different. No additional exams. Like, what do I even mean? So let's first, I got to do what Sequia told me to do. And that is, I can't assume that everybody understands what I mean by a SKIA.
Wow. Let's just take a moment. This is amazing. Give it up for Donnell Stidham.
So what I'm saying is we want some vehicle that I can dump my money into, build secure income, and then at some point be able to take it as income to be able to live off. There are many types of SKIAs. There are annuities. There's IULs, regular IULs. There's high yield savings. Your regular savings account can be used as a secure compound interest account. Why? It's secure. It does produce compound interest. Now, we can debate whether or not it's enough to be able to do anything, but it is, again, based off the terms of a SKIA, it is a SKIA. But then there's also this leveraged IUL. The piece that I want to make sure is clear today is usually we're talking about an MPI strategy, a maximum premium indexing strategy, a leveraged IUL. This gentleman stating, I wanted no additional exams is important because that takes him out of being able to have a maximum premium indexing strategy, an MPI strategy. It takes him out. Why is that? Let me explain why. Went too far. There we go. I meant to go here.
Here we are, the buckets.
So when we're talking about a maximum premium indexing strategy, an MPI strategy, what we're saying is I'm investing a certain dollar amount early on. And then at some point, leverage is going to be added to my account and there's growth on that leverage. And then that's at year 3. At year 5, that leverage doubles. At year 7, that leverage triples. And then so on and so on, and continues to compound. Well, how do you get access to this leverage? How do you get access to that leverage? You have to qualify for it. What it means is you've qualified for this amount. You have not qualified for this amount. And so what that may require of you is, all the life insurance company wants to know is, are you still healthy? You have to look at this process from the life insurance company's perspective. What are we buying? We're buying life insurance. And the life insurance has appraised you. You're an asset, by the way. Your life is an asset. And the life insurance company says, we appraised you here. And we are comfortable adding this leverage inside your policy based off how we have appraised you here. Not a problem. But when you want to add this leverage, we just need to make sure there's no roof leaks in the asset that we purchased. We just want to get an inspection done on the house before we buy it,
Right.
because you are an asset. So what the life insurance company says is, hey, are you still healthy? But the specific instructions from Bailey was, I don't have a problem getting qualified, but I am done. And so what I wanted to share with you was, so what does this process look like if we use a simple leveraged IUL that's max funded, that you put $1 in and you never have to worry about another exam for the life of the policy? What does that look like? So, sweetheart, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Crass is down here saying, so please note, keep that Planet Fitness membership, y'all. Stay healthy.
Let's flip that though, because from my perspective is, I get to be healthy. You're telling me all I have to do to be able to get more and more leverage into my policy without having to put more money in, the life insurance company is going to add compounding leverage to my policy, and all I have to do is be healthy. They didn't say I had to make more money. They didn't say I had to become, I'll call it super healthy. They didn't say any of that. All they said was I just needed to be healthy. Like, that's it? Like, I'll take that all day long. So
Yeah.
what I wanted to share with you guys is, again, this is another one of those things that I've never shared. I don't know if you, most of the time we pull up a calculator, we pull up the compound interest calculator using the MPI strategy. Well, because we're not using the MPI strategy, that calculator does not apply. This is a calculator that a really good business partner of mine has been working on for some time. So I wanted to introduce it because I think it fits. This is just simply a leveraged IUL calculator. It takes into consideration many different mutual life insurance companies and their IUL strategies, and it wraps it all into one. So it's a pretty powerful tool. And what we're looking at is, we're looking at a gentleman, and I'll make it bigger, who's now 45 years of age. And what I'm saying is, well, what he said was, hey, I got 20 more years. I want to turn, I need to make up for the amount that I don't think I'm going to have for my retirement. I need 60 grand a year in income. And I've got this line of credit that's empty. So what we're going to do is, we're going to take 40,000 in year 1, 40,000 in year 2. We're going to do what's called a two-pay. We're going to split this 80,000 over the next 2 years. Why am I able to do that? Because I've got an $80,000 line of credit that's liquid, that allows me to take advantage of it whenever I feel. And notice, I am not a fan of over leveraging yourself. So I am not using all 80,000 in year 1. That does not make any sense to me. We're going to split that 80,000 in half, 40,000 year 1, 40,000 year 2. And notice, monthly payment, he's got $2,600 in cash flow. I'm not taking $2,600 in cash flow. I'm using $500 a month. 500 out of the 2,600. He is more than capable of applying these dollar amounts into this vehicle. So what happens when you do that? Well, when we do that, come over there. Make it a little bit more. There we go. When we do that, notice this leveraged IUL is able to produce $65,000 a year tax-free for the rest of his life. And that breakdown looks like this. Make this a little bit bigger for you. He's putting in 46,000 in year 1, 46,000 in year 2. Again, that's that 80,000 divided between year 1 and year 2. When he put this 40,000 in year 1, he was using Velocity Banking to pay back his line of credit. As he used Velocity Banking, he had $2,100 a month in cash flow paying back this $40,000. Now, clearly he didn't pay off 40,000 in 12 months, but that's okay. And then he's going to grab another 40,000 at year 2, which means at the start of year 2, he's going to have the remaining balance of what he didn't pay on the first 40,000 plus a brand new balance of 40,000 on top. But from that point forward, there is no more leverage going inside this policy. But his MEC limit is $46,000 every year for the rest of his life. He never has to qualify for another dollar amount. We have max funded his policy up front. We have structured this such that he now can put in $46,000 for the rest of his life with no question. So what's going to happen is at year 3, just like the leveraged IUL strategy works, at year 3, everything that we put in year 1 is going to get added to year 3. And from year 3 forward, we're going to add $40,000 of leverage because he has room for $46,000. So you might be asking, why didn't I add $46,000? Well, if he's putting in $6,000 a year and he's got room for $46,000, we don't want to MEC his policy, so we can only put in $40,000. So we're going to put in that $40,000 for the next 20 years. And again, this is an option B policy. Option B says, as you drop in premium, your cash flow increases based off the cash value. So I guess I didn't need that part. So notice his death benefit increases as he puts in this $6,000 a year and the leverage. And not only that, his cash value, which is what he has available, increases as well. The asset value, again, terminology, the asset value is the cash value he's accumulated plus the leverage that's been added. So it's a combination. But the surrender value is his liquidity. The surrender value is what he has available in 20 years. So he has a total of about $650,000 at that 20-year mark. And what this calculator is saying is, based off that $650,000, he would be able to take approximately 10% as income for the rest of his life. Just want to highlight something here, though. What if, instead of waiting till 45, he decided to start this process at 40? Because he could. What would that look like? Oh, just a minute. Let me update this real quick. If he was to start this process at age 40, again, age 40, 5 years earlier, at age 40, putting in that $6,000 a year, and then again, using the same leverage dollar amount, we're not putting in any more than that. If he was to follow this exact same process 5 years earlier, we're talking about $117,000 tax-free for the rest of his life. Now he's putting himself in a position to where he doesn't have to wait till 65. He doesn't have to work forever, regardless of what his 401k does or doesn't do, regardless of what his pension did or didn't cover. He's putting himself in a position to where he now has more control over what the time frame looks like as to when he wants to retire. Again, it's about becoming self-directed. It's about having control. He is placing himself in a position to where he now has control. All right.
Yep.
So
He also has leverage in the meantime. And that part's important when you are faced with an opportunity and you see an opportunity, whether if it's to pick up another property, if that's what you're into, or invest in something. You also have a liquid asset, which is equally as important. There's a lot of people out here that are focused on getting rid of their debt or paying off their home super fast to save on interest. What they're saving is what they're actually walking away from being able to generate. So it's per year. So if you're wanting to save $100,000 and that's the whole goal of paying off your mortgage fast, but you are forfeiting the ability to have $100,000 tax-free for the rest of your life every year.
what you're losing is time.
Well, that too, but you're tripping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Amen. And again, that's where, go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of people out here that don't know any different because they don't know the other piece of this. They don't know how to build wealth, so all they can do is talk about. So to Sequia's question earlier, when someone doesn't understand finances and so they are very limited in the scope of conversation that they can have around them, then the outcomes are limited as well. So the conversations are limited, and that's okay. Everybody is where they are, and that's okay. But when you know different, Now it's your job to be like the beacon out there to say, hey, there is something else that's possible. Because when they find out that you did this for you, right? And they just had no idea, they had no access to this type of information. I don't know. I'd be kind of upset if somebody didn't at least try to tell me.
But this is also where, because you can usually that conversation, you can almost predict that thought process or that conversation coming when the question becomes, but what about that 11.25% interest rate? Right?
Yeah, it's
Notice if I
surface math. Yeah.
right, if I was so focused on what the bank is receiving, like I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
give the bank all of that. If I'm so focused on the details that the bank hopes that I'm focused on, I miss an opportunity to be able to put my money to work.
Right. And leverage time because you're not doing anything. This isn't a side hustle. You're not selling anything to generate this income. You're not having to go get a degree so that you can, get a higher paying position. None of that. This is just money working for you. And we all should have been taught all of these things in school. This information should be for everybody coming out the gate when they start adulting so that they can start their plan then and understand the importance of it. They can quit earlier, right? The reason why I'm mentioning this, and especially as it relates to time and information, without access to this information, we know, let me start over. We know that the one thing, the key that unlocked all of these doors for us to be able to pay off our home if we wanted to. We could have paid off of our mortgage over a year ago for sure. We don't want to. So we can't make that claim of like, now we're mortgage free. You see now why we don't make those claims and we don't talk about that as much because that part doesn't matter. That's not a win anymore for us. We see things completely different. It's not a goal. It's just a pit stop, right? It was a rest stop saying, okay, now we're at this point. Do we ever want to go get to that point? Maybe we don't. The point that I'm trying to make though is the keys that unlocked all of these doors was just knowing where to get information, having access to information. If we didn't know these things were possible, we couldn't implement them, right? We couldn't learn about them. Now we can reject them all we wanted to. That was me, right? Because talking about being petty, I was like, okay, look, I know I'm not the math person in the relationship. I'm on my healing journey with math still. The point is that I was like, this isn't mathing, bro, and I'm not getting it. Why are you even considering this? This sounds crazy. Anybody can see just on the surface, just putting two numbers together, one is higher, okay? One of these things is not like the other. Why are we here? Why are we having this conversation? Can we talk about something else than all this math? And I'm glad that he was so passionate. It was his passion and his belief that was like, oh, he's not getting off of this mountain. He's going to die on this hill. So I might as well go walk up there, hike up there and see what he sees from that view, right? Might as well, because he's like, okay, bye. I'm going to be on this hill. I will die on this hill. If we all need to be like that so that other people can understand there is something to look at. Come up here and look, right? Come up here and look and see what I see. And once they see the math all the way through, they'll be like, I'll be dang. I would not have seen it from my perspective, right? So the passion, the belief, making this a non-negotiable so that you have tax-free income for the rest of your life, like that, being taken care of and having income and making sure you're not just your needs are met, not just surviving, that we were able to thrive because the generations ahead of them and ahead of them, they need us to give them these platforms in order for them to survive. That's a whole other live stream. We've gone over that many, many times, but it's sickening to see where even the real estate industry, the rental markets, what they will do in the next 15 or 20 years. If you think Gen Z has it bad getting out and starting adulting today, imagine where Gen Alpha will be. It's crazy. Okay, we do have a lot of questions, but you have something else?
So just let me wrap up and
Yep.
we can jump into it. So we'll go back. You can go ahead and go back over to the vibe board.
Okay.
The moral of the story to all of this is just simply being conscious of the goal. And again, we've covered a lot. And again, I didn't know any way other than going into these details in order to make sure this was clear, but we've covered paying off your mortgage fast. If that's an objective, like there are so many things available to you, especially if you have equity in your home to be able to do so, whether that's a first lien or a second lien position HELOC, and then chunking away with the second position. In a lot of cases, a second lien chunking method is actually less expensive than a first position because of the size, meaning you're paying less interest to, again, I can't remember, I think it's Ann. And to Ann's point around the interest rate, if interest rate is a concern, notice having less at a higher interest rate allows you to pay less interest if you have higher cash flow. Like, again, it's around doing, it's not allowing the interest rate to prevent you from moving forward. It's understanding the impact that the interest rate will have and making sure you have enough cash flow to counter whatever those issues might be. And how to recast. We talk about it a lot, but I just wanted to share with you the mortgage calculator and what that process. It's really simple. Like as simple as it was with the mortgage calculator here, it's even more simple for the bank. And again, they think they are winning by doing so. So this is an action that when you go to take it, you're almost seen as how can I help you more? Because from their perspective, they have you now locked in for longer when our objective is just to leverage the additional cash flow to be able to pay it off faster. The difference between a first lien and a second position, first lien and a second lien HELOC, and what those positions mean. Again, from the bank's perspective, it's all about the mortgage. That's all they care about. If there's no mortgage there, then whatever that vehicle is that you have with the bank gets moved into first position. And again, and everything else after that is a position beyond that. And we've been talking about it a lot today, but from my perspective, interest rates, and notice when we put all of these things side by side, the total amount of interest spent is roughly the same. We're talking anywhere from 140 to what maybe $170,000 in interest. While 40 grand in interest difference is significant, my point is I'm going to call it in the same, I'll call it arena, scope of in the same bubble. Because the better question is, are you able to leverage your line of credit to be able to do whatever it is you want? Don't let the interest rate and or how much interest you're giving back to the bank distract you, because that is nothing more than a distraction. Let the math dictate what you should or shouldn't do.
Right.
And then the last piece is just because we talk a lot about the MPI strategy, that doesn't mean that's the only strategy available to you to be able to produce income. A leveraged IUL is a leveraged IUL is a leveraged IUL. It's about structure. It's less about the vehicle, actually. It's about how the vehicle is structured. You can get an IUL from anywhere. That doesn't mean it's structured properly for you to be able to produce the income that you want. So that structure matters. And if you properly design an IUL and the life insurance company you're working with allows you to apply leverage to it, it's a game changer, because that leverage being added year after year after year will allow you to hit your goal. And that's that last part. Making sure we keep in mind, take into consideration the goal and remain focused on hitting that goal. Don't allow those, I'll call it those surface math related issues like I want to pay off this credit card impact your ability to hit the true goal, which is supplementing your retirement or making sure you leave a legacy or putting yourself in a position so that you can fire your job or retire early or whatever those true goals are. Don't allow this stuff to prevent you from being able to focus on that. And I'm done, sweetheart.
On that note, let's start the Q&A. All right. So we've got some really great comments and some really great ads. I want to tell anybody who, you know what? Before we do that, really quick, because we haven't done this in a while, and I want to make sure the people that are watching us on different devices know how to help get our help. Here we go. Okay, if you're watching us on TV, we know that we still have a large percentage of viewers who watch us on TV. And so if that is you, you can just get out your phone and scan the QR code. That's what it is, by the way.
Take a picture of it, I think is what I used to say.
Take a picture. Get your camera out and take a picture. Don't do that. Just get the camera out. And here's why we're saying this. We know that there are people out here who have not had to bother with the tech, and then all of a sudden when they want to, they don't know how to. No judgment here. And so that's why we're telling you all the steps. So you just don't take a picture. You just wait till the yellow thing pops up when you have your audio. I'm going to mute you while you fix it, okay? Then you can text us your questions. So that's what that's all about. And I don't know what's all about Donnell's audio. Maybe it's a cable issue because he moves it back and forth so much. We'll have to get the glue out, some tape. Are you back? You have to unmute yourself now.
You tell me.
Okay, yeah, you're back. You're muted. You're muted. It's like the phrase of this decade. Okay, so I've got it open so that in case anybody sends a message, and I'll try to also keep track of that. And let's get in here. Okay, Anne is up. She is in Canada, and she says, I get it, but in Canada, the term is 5 years, not 30 like the USA. Any advice on the moving target?
Hold on. In America, the term is 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So it really just depends. And how about this? Ours is 10. It's a 10-year draw. My take on it is this. If I only have 5 years, I am going to maximize that 5 years. Well, I probably can't maximize up to the 5-year mark. I'm going to maximize 4 of those 5 years. In that 5th year, what am I focused on? Well, hopefully I took enough action inside of this vehicle so that I have so much room that at the 4-year mark, when I go back to the bank and say, hey, I need to re-up, I need to get another line of credit. In 4 years, the home has improved. In 4 years, the appraisal of the house should be in a better position. So therefore, I should have more equity available. So I'll get another 5-year line of credit. Why is that? Getting a line of credit is not the same as refinancing a mortgage. It does not have the same cost associated. So getting a line of credit might cost you, let's call it somewhere between $300 and $1,000. Whereas refinancing a mortgage, you're talking about extreme closing costs, right? So I will pay that $1,000 over and over and over again to bounce back and forth or keep jumping into a line of credit every 5 years. So I would, again, me personally, I wouldn't allow the 5 years to stop you. That's not an unusual mark. I think it's disappointing that you can't get beyond that, but I would not allow that 5 years to deter you from moving forward with a line of credit. I would let the math determine whether or not you should move forward with the line of credit.
Okay, and her next question is, how difficult is it to qualify for a HELOC in today's environment?
How difficult is it to qualify for a mortgage? And again, in most cases, it's more difficult to qualify for a mortgage than a home equity line of credit. And again, it's because the banks do not see you coming. When you walk into the bank and you mention lines of credit, their first objective is going to put you in a mortgage. That is the product that they have to sell you. So in a lot of times, so my point is this: if you can qualify for a mortgage, you can qualify for a line of credit.
Okay. Next is we're back with basic Deb. She says recast, not so basic Deb. Recast question. I'm 14 years into a 30-year mortgage. My rate is 4.25%. Still looking good, Deb. Looking good.
Same as the example for today.
Yeah. I'll have my worksheet just about finished. I'll be contacting you soon. Love you too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And Anne was asking, well, how do we get the contact info for a small consult via email, please? Okay, if you want to email some questions in, that's okay too. You can do that. I'm going to put that information up right now. Okay, you can go to selfdirected.info/live. That's where you probably got the worksheet from. Inside of your email is the calendar link to just book a call. What else do you want to say?
Well, I was just going to say, if we're talking HELOCs and strategy, as you guys may not know, I'm not a bank. You cannot get a line of credit from me. But what we can do is talk through strategy. And I do obviously I know of some banks that offer decent products and stuff like that. So we can kick the tires around who might what bank might make sense. But depending on your state, usually what I tell people is this. If you're trying to identify a bank to be able to get a product like this, just start at the search bar of Google. Put in your zip code and identify the banks and credit unions of a radius around your home and start interviewing banks. And then what we can do is we can talk through what are some of those questions you should ask. And in addition, there are white glove services out here. Like there are many different options out here for you to be able to accomplish your goal. So we can absolutely discuss strategy. But if we're talking about where to get a home equity line of credit from, I start with just kind of using the radius of your home.
Yeah. And the Facebook group is a great place too. Sometimes just asking the question of like, what are the current offers that you guys are seeing out there right now? Who do you bank with? What are you like? What information do you have access to? And that way you can just pull it all together in one post and or help each other out in that way. That can also be very helpful. Firstpositionheloc.com is one of our number one recommendations, just not because we don't get compensated from them at all. It's because they've designed their HELOC for the purpose of velocity banking. So they get what it is you're trying to do. Some people don't believe in using HELOCs for velocity banking or for leverage in general. They just, stay away from it because they are afraid that some of the fear is that it will convert into a loan. And then you get closed out. It's no longer liquid. It's no longer flexible, no longer a line of credit. And so therefore you don't have access to take it out, only to put it back in. Now there's a lot of, also, I'm just going to say this while we're on the topic of HELOCs, because and I think in the last one, right? Option 4.
Skeletor.
Was the HEA,
Right.
the HE loan, right? HE loan. These lots of different types of or brands of home equity investments, loans, whatever they want to call them. I was looking into them last night. There was a few of them that their marketing is so clever. It looks so good, right? No payments, no interest. Like, what are we talking about here? Tell me more. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, yeah. No payments, no interest. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So you could get all the up to 200, 300, 400, up to 75% loan to value. Like your equity in one chunk, no payments, no interest. Like this is sounding nice. So you got to look into it, because if you don't know what they're talking about, it sounds kind of like a reverse mortgage a little bit. Only 2% of people have a reverse mortgage, because you have to be 62 or older to have access to that, right? But these you don't, which is another selling point. So you're like, I don't have to be 62. Like, what? I could access this? Oh, yeah. And no interest? Like, that sounds way better than 11%, right?
Right.
Yeah. So then what are we talking about here? And they're like, you could apply online.
Come over here. Let me show you.
Get an answer in like 15 minutes. Get an estimate. Come on.
Then the door closes behind you.
Get an estimate. And then you wake up in a dark alley.
Right, in handcuffs.
It's so to those who are asking about the variable interest rate, this is where that surface math, this marketing on the surface math, right, has us all divided. I've been waiting for that. Did you get it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so point is, there's a lot of products that are coming out, but if you are looking for a HELOC, if you're looking for a line of credit that you can put in, take out, you have an understanding of what those terms are, and you know when you, like, there's not a bunch of red tape, velvet ropes for you to pay this off, right? Because that's really what it is. They have set these home equity investments as velvet ropes. And you just walking up, and they're like, get in here, girl, get in here. Get in here and get one of these home equity investments. You know what I mean? They're the future. They are the future. That's the future of your equity. So even though they say, hey, even if the equity drops, even if the market crashes and your value is lower when you go to cash out or you go to pay this all back, we're okay with that because they know it's not. And here's how you know it's not. Here's how you know. Here's the hack. Go to that website, wherever you see those ads, go to that website, go to the bottom of the page. At the bottom of the page will be partner with us, okay? Invest with us. Go download those free resources so that you can get behind the scenes of what they're saying about people like you. So the person who they're wanting to invest, the client, right? Now go on the other side of why they want people to invest with them and look how they talk about you. Look how they talk about their clients and their customers and how profitable this is. So if it wasn't super profitable, right? Who benefits? Sakuya was saying it earlier in the chat. Who benefits? If it wasn't, they wouldn't have an industry. They wouldn't have a company. They wouldn't be blowing up. But so many people are stuck on the surface math, right? So they go, this is a no-brainer. No interest. Well, how would they make money? So what is it if it's not interest? There's a lot of people saying that kind of stuff out here, like people who are on YouTube or TikTok or wherever, and they, talking about things, and they say, they don't have to reveal that they're being compensated or how much they're being compensated for things because they're now rebranding it as a marketing fee.
Right.
So you have no idea now. We don't do those sponsor things, and we will let you know if we choose to do them. But we just chose to have this be a thing for us that we are not interested in that. If we take care of our people, we will be taken care of, and we don't have to get ahead by getting off the backs of other people that we're trying to help. Yeah, we just felt like that was a non-negotiable for us, especially out here with all these sponsorships, throwing all this money around, or these affiliate deals or whatever. We're not into it. So that's not our thing. But that's why you got to be careful and you have to be educated on this. Otherwise, technically, people don't have to tell you. And it's it's unfortunate because you're looking to make educated and calculated decisions, right? And you have no idea that these other variables are a factor unless you can do the math. And that's really what becoming self-directed is all about. It's about taking control and having the information so that you are armed with those decision-making tools. That when a situation's in front of you, you pull out your toolkit and you're just like, I'm prepared. What do you want? What do you want to talk about? What is it that we need? I got all the Allen wrenches, so to speak. Okay, so back to questions. I think we've covered Anne, not so basic Deb. Nathan with a question. What? Nathan's usually answering questions in there, but this one's a good one.
So I think if you go to the website, you'll see that I think there's a banner up there now that they are in the midst of revamping things. So a lot of times when I'll call it as values change, as interest rates change, all of that stuff has to be updated as well to make sure that it still qualifies to be able to be on the site. So in the midst of kind of readdressing all of that, and I think it states up there, give them till about July 1st, I think, before I'll call it the revamped or the or the new and improved version will be there. So that's the reason I wanted to kind of pull out that pull out that leveraged IUL calculator to kind of give us another tool to be able to use. Because at the end of the day, the MPI strategy is just a leveraged IUL. It's you using an IUL and your cash value being put back in based off leverage over time to be able to produce the income that you're looking for. So it's not, I'll call it super, I'll call it difficult to recreate. So that's the reason I wanted to kind of introduce that calculator as well. So, yep.
Okay, and Zaid says, so can we get the one that you're using? Can we share
I
it
didn't
out?
create it, so let me kind of talk with my buddy to see what his thoughts are. But we'll see what can happen.
Yeah, it's like, how could I be down?
I am looking at
circle.
a question here from Ann. Does the clock reset every 5 years? Did we address that? Did I address that?
Oh, I might have thought that you addressed it. So
I don't know.
definitely do that now.
That's really more of a question because
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm clear as to the clock resetting every 5 years. Meaning, if I am getting another HELOC, like if I've got a HELOC with a 5 year draw, and if at year 4 I prepare so that I can get another HELOC before that 5 year draw is up, does that clock restart? If that's, and I just want to make sure I'm clear as to what it is you're saying, because from that perspective, if I'm getting another um, home equity line of credit, the old line of credit is paid off. This is a brand new line of credit with a brand new 5 year draw. And again, in 4 years, I'll do it all again. So if you're talking about that clock restarting, I guess the short answer to that question is yes, because it's a brand new product every 5 years. So, but
Yeah, I was
I
going to
just want to
say,
make sure that's clear.
and party of one, and we need clarification on your question. Here we got. Here we go. Here we go. Anne's in it. Mortgage front end and the back end.
On the recast,
So I think she's just talking about a all interest goes to the top. Oh, after 5 years, repeat. So
oh, yes.
refinance.
So, but hold on. In a refinance, you're absolutely right. The clock starts over. But I go back to when you go do a recast of your mortgage, the bank loves that. Why? For that reason right there. You're right. Everything does start all over again. So the interest does move to the top. But notice, we took a recast after 36 months and then recast again in 24 months. I don't care about that amortization schedule because I will never go to term. So yes, you are absolutely correct. That interest is being pulled to the front, which is why the bank are they're on board with you being able to recast because they see the benefit. They don't realize the strategy that I'm using, the strategy that I'm talking about, will pay this off in record time. So they will never see that interest. They think they're going to get that interest, but it'll never happen that way. So yeah, that clock absolutely restarts.
Okay, up next. Up next is, oh, I lost my spot. Up next is Zensperity. Please expound a bit further on the $40,000 leveraged premium or 40,000 leveraged premium loans, please. Por favor.
So I would invite you to take a look at maybe two streams ago or two lives ago, where we broke down how money grows inside of a leveraged IUL.
Let me go find it
Um,
and I'll put it in the chat for you.
I'll high level. It looks like this.
Okay.
And I don't know that I can go high level, but anyway, high level looks like this. Let's say, using this example, putting in $500 a month, which is $6,000 a year, and in addition, there was a lump sum of 40,000 placed in year 1 and year 2. So 46,000 year 1, 46,000 year 2. Well, the agreement that we have with the life insurance companies that allow us to do leveraged IULs, the agreement goes like this: Hey, because you've contributed consecutively to your policy in year 1 and year 2, starting in year 3, you're able to put everything dollar for dollar that you put in year 1 in year 3 as additional leverage. Meaning, you're only on the hook for $6,000. But how much room do you have in your policy? What is the MEC limit on your leveraged IUL? Well, in this case, it's a max funded policy, which means the MEC limit is, let's call it 46,003 cents, which means if you put in $6,000 at year 3, you have room for an additional 40,000. And again, the agreement that we have with the life insurance company on our leveraged IUL says this: because you've consecutively contributed to your policy in year 1 and year 2, everything from year 1, we can pull into year 3 with at I was about to say at no cost. It is at a cost, but the bottom line is you're able to leverage everything from year 1 and put that in year 3. But what does leverage mean? Leverage is saying I get to borrow everything from year 1 and add it to year 3. Well, if I've already put in 6,000, I have room for 46,000. I can't borrow all 46,000 and pull it into year 3. I can only borrow 40. So again, I am borrowing $40,000 from the life insurance company, putting it in as brand new principal. So that means at year 3, 6,000 of my money has gone in, but I've borrowed 40,000 from the life insurance company. Some people hear the word borrow and go, "Ooh, if I'm borrowing it from the life insurance company, doesn't that mean I have to pay it back?" Well, yes and no. I'm borrowing it from the life insurance company, and 40,000 is going into the general fund along with my $6,000. If I borrowed it from the life insurance company, it's in the general fund with my $6,000. Do I physically have that $6,000? I'm sorry, do I physically have that $40,000? I don't. I borrowed it, but I don't physically have it. It's not in my pocket. I can't go to my savings account and use it. It's sitting in the general fund. So me borrowing that $40,000 doesn't mean I owe principal because the life insurance company already has the principal. It does mean I owe interest. What we're doing in this process is we're becoming the bank. We're doing what banks do. I'm borrowing 40,000 and let's say 4%. And the growth on that money inside of that IUL is growing on average 7, 8, on average 7%, but let's say it's 7, 8, 9, whatever those dollar amounts are. So if I'm growing on average 7%, it costs me 4% to leverage that dollar amount. Again, growing on average 7 cost me 4%. 7 minus 4, there's 3% spread. There's a 3% arbitrage. So with me not putting any more money than the $6,000 I was putting in, I am now making a 3% spread on the $40,000 that I'm leveraging from the life insurance company. That spread allows me to outperform any traditional IUL, any traditional whole life policy, and in most cases, any 401k or IRA. So that leverage is, again, that leverage is being pulled from year one, being added as new premium, and I'm able to do that every year, which means that leverage compounds. It's not just 40,000 one time that I'm borrowing. It's 40,000 on top of 40,000 on top of 40,000 and continues. So hopefully that helps, but I think you would need a visual to kind of go along with it. And we've covered this a lot on the
Yeah,
chat.
and we have one. We have a visual. I'm just going to share here. This is, oh, I can't circle it like you circle it.
And I can't.
How do I circle it? How do I show them the one? How do I show them the one that it is? Oh, here we go.
Yep.
That's how I do it. Okay. Right here. This one right here is the one that you want to see. The buckets, right? That's how money grows. That's how these types of policies are impacted. And we just covered this not too long ago. So you're in luck. That's one of them, but we've done this multiple times. Don't judge our thumbnails because some of them don't have it on here. The other place that you can have that, we've had that same kind of conversation, is right here. Look for the reverse Uno cards because we had that conversation in those live streams too. Don't miss our Wizard of Oz because it's a personal fave. Just shout out to that one because I think that's a good one. But we've talked about a lot of things here. We've talked about the this particular strategy, Heloc. What's happening? We've talked about the Heloc. We've talked about the leveraged IUL, right? Those are just two of the cogs in our machine, for instance. We didn't talk about how you could leverage. So leveraging your home is one thing, but leveraging your retirement funds to be able to do something completely different and get a different result with them is also equally beneficial and possible. To just how you're structured matters so much. And understanding that, not just understanding one of the cogs in a machine, understanding where all of your leverage is so that you know what kind of machine is possible for you to build, right? That's the part. Then you'll know, once you understand those vehicles, then you'll see opportunities where before they would have blown by you. You'll see like, wow, actually I can invest in that. Actually, I can allocate these funds right now to that. I have access to that. I can take advantage of this because I have access. I can make this move. This makes absolute sense for me because I understand where I'm going to because I have my goal. Okay, moving on. Rodrigo says, question, if you are on year 10 of a 15-year mortgage and you recast after making a chunk payment into that principal, do you go back to 15 years or can you switch it to 30 years?
So, okay.
I love this question.
Leave it up for me.
Okay.
So I can reference it because I think I got it. But
You want me to use it in a sentence?
Can I have a vowel, please?
Yeah, origin. Here we go.
So you have a 15-year mortgage. You're in year 10. You've only got 5 years left. If you were to recast, then what will happen is instead of you only having 5 years left, Meaning if you dump some type of lump sum onto your mortgage, it would move you from year 10, let's say, down to year 12 or 13, which means you only have 2 or 3 years left. Well, recasting is saying, I don't want to stay down there with 2 to 3 years left. I want to come back to year 15, year 10. I want to come, so I don't want to be at year 12, year 13 when I dump this amount on. I want to come back to year 10 and I want to recalculate this new principal amount or this new balance on my mortgage from year 10 on to year 15. So what you're starting is, so again, I can't remember who it was, maybe it was Ann, that interest is that new amortization schedule. It's basically a 5-year amortized loan from year 10 to year 15, and all of the interest is pulled to the front, just like, because I think that's a great point. That is absolutely what happens here. But bottom line is you're pulling that new balance back to year 15 and you're starting the clock from there. Hopefully that helps.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Rodrigo. And welcome, by the way. Haven't
And
seen.
the last half of his question around 15 year to a 30,
Oh,
notice recast, you didn't have to leave. Notice recast is recalculating. So all we're doing is recalculating the same mortgage. If you go from a 15 to a 30, that's a brand new mortgage. That's a refinance. And so that looks different.
you know, live streaming. Live streaming is a sport. I'm trying to be in the comment section, type my comment out before I got to do something else or realize I got to move you.
Well,
I
one
got to
more thing.
train.
But no, one more. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I got to trade for this, y'all. Okay. It's Shay Shay. Shay Shay says, with an MPI, does a person have to continue to do a health exam? It's a great question.
Yep, and that's kind of what I highlighted in this example, because I've had this before, but I didn't have one as close to or in the midst of an example that I was building, so I wanted to build it in there. Look at it from the life insurance company's perspective. Again, if we're adding $40,000 of leverage at year 3, we're adding $40,000 of leverage at year 4. The MPI strategy says at year 5, you just met that obligation that I had talked about earlier for another 2 years, which means in addition to the 40,000 that we're already adding at year 5, the life insurance company says, go grab another 40,000 from year 2 and bring that in as well. But wait, if I bring in more premium over and above the MEC limit that I'm set, I have to move the MEC limit. In a whole life policy, they would say, because I'm approaching my MEC, I have to go get another policy. In this case, because if I add more leverage, I am approaching or I'm about to exceed my MEC, I have to move my MEC. I have to jump my policy. I have to increase the space available in my policy. Increasing the space available in my policy is saying what to the life insurance company? That's saying I need more life insurance. You've been approved for this dollar amount. They will give you can do whatever you want in between these guardrails.
Yeah.
But the minute you say, I want more life insurance, the life insurance company says, well, if I'm going to move the guardrail, before we do that, we just need to make sure you're still healthy. So anytime you step outside of that guardrail that you've already been approved for, that's where an exam would have to be done, because again, they just want to confirm you're still healthy. It's possible that there's enough room already built into your policy that you're nowhere close to that guardrail. So any increase while inside those guardrails, there's no exam required because you've already been approved. Let me give you an example. Let's say in this example, he put all 80,000 in year 1 instead of 40, meaning he's putting 80,000 in year 1 and then $6,000 a year after that, which means at year 2, there's room for 80,000. At year 3, there's room for 80,000. At year 4, there's room for 80,000. So if we're only borrowing 40,000 in year 2, 3, 4, and 5, adding it to the policy, I've got space that I'm able to take advantage of before I even approach those guardrails. So again, this is where design matters, structure matters. Who is building this for you matters, because if they don't understand these things, they could just, using my wife's term, they could willy-nilly construct this this policy and then not have the proper features for you to be able to expand your policy without having to do a new one. So
Yeah. It's a good word, by the way. If you
really.
haven't used it in a while, just take it for a lap. You know what I mean? Put it into
Last thing you would
use.
want is go to hell in a handcart.
Oh my gosh, we're at 50,000 views on Instagram
You
and
mean to do
over
it? Go to the next question. Go to
5,000
the next
comments.
question. Next question.
Okay. All right. 5,000 people care a lot about hand baskets. And I can't even use Instagram now because hundreds a day
Y'all, I
just come in the
apologize.
comments
I pushed her in the hole. She's
just
falling down the hole. I apologize.
just to tell me that my husband was right. It's a loss. It's an L I've been
What'd you
taking
say?
that keeps on L'ing. It's a loss
No, the other part.
that you were
That
right. Yeah. Hand
Father's
baskets.
Day again. It's almost like we're back at Sunday.
It was help me with this argument with my husband. I was like, who the heck says hand baskets? And now I have hand baskets, hundreds of hand basket comments a day. It is a loss that keeps on losing. This is a new level of hell. I don't know what kind of handbag it's going in, but my Instagram right now is almost unusable because of the people. It's the petty patrol in the comments. Anyway, moving on. Oh, nope, wrong one. Shay Shay says, quick question. I have a second position HELOC with Navy Federal. They do not have a first position HELOC. If at some point I wanted to get a first position from another bank, how should I do it?
Yep. It goes back to my comment earlier. I'm a fan of interviewing banks. Like maybe down the street there's a Chase, and across the street there's a Bank of America. I would take your Navy Federal information over to one of those banks or a credit union down the street or whatever the case may be, and I'd interview. I'd ask questions. Hey, what do you offer? What's the draw period? How is the interest calculated? Do you have a sweep account? Like, there's all sorts of questions you could be asking there, and I would just interview. But you're right. You would have to leave Navy Federal, and I've been doing this long enough to know. I remember when Navy Federal offered a first position HELOC, and that thing was pretty spectacular because it did have a sweep account associated with it. So it's sad that they stopped, but yeah, you would have to leave Navy Federal. But based off today's example, that second position HELOC can work for you as well. Maybe you might just need to increase it a little bit, but I wouldn't run from the second position HELOC just yet. I would make sure that you can't maximize what it can do for you.
Yeah, Shay Shay, I don't know if you were here when we started with the example today, but that would be a great one for you to go back and replay so you could see how the second position was utilized, even though it wasn't even at its full maximum, leverage or yeah, capacity. So, okay, Jay says, question about the first lien HELOC sitting in the mortgage as one loan. No credit card debt with 70K in equity. Would you use the HELOC to buy a new car if you really need the transportation? So, Jay, are you unable to get a loan at a cheaper rate than you are the HELOC if that's what you're wanting to use it for? What you're saying is, I have leverage. This is my leverage, my equity. I can use that. If you can qualify for the HELOC, you might be able to qualify for cheaper money, essentially, just for the car loan. Check that first. But if you already have, because he said no credit card debt, right? If you're using a strategy like this, then you could absolutely buy the car and start paying off your mortgage faster, or use it to invest. But again, that long math matters. Hashtag long math matters.
One more time.
Long math matters.
Um, I want to make sure I'm clear on the first sentence, though. Are you saying you have a first lien in place of the mortgage? You're saying sitting in the mortgage as one loan. That reads strangely to me. So let me make an assumption. I want to assume that the first lien position line of credit has replaced the mortgage. The mortgage no longer exists, but the balance on the mortgage now sits inside of the line of credit, because the line of credit now has a balance on it, which is the amount that the mortgage used to be. But just so we're clear, the mortgage is gone. It is paid off. What you
Right.
owe back to the bank is the line of credit. So now,
Or
would you
you're
use
saying
the
he already has one? You think he already has one?
again? I'm saying I'm making an assumption,
Jay,
and
party of one. Jay, could you come to the chat and
what
tell
I'm
us, please?
assuming is you have a first position HELOC that has paid off the mortgage. The balance now holds the mortgage, meaning it's been replaced. And now the question is, would you use the HELOC to buy a new car? Um, it depends on the amount of home equity line of credit you have. Like in our case, we only got a line of credit large enough to pay off the mortgage, which means month one, there was no room. Our cash flow, as we started to dump our paycheck into the line of credit, that room, that equity started to build inside of that line of credit. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely correct. Give that some time. Can you leverage that equity to be your own bank? Go buy your car. The balance goes back up on the line of credit. The monthly payment that you were going to pay back to the bank as a car loan, you're now going to take that monthly payment. Well, you're already putting your income into your line of credit, but the bottom line is that you have now financed your own vehicle and you're using your income to pay back off the line of credit. So,
Yep.
but I'm
And
making a
if
lot of assumptions here. So.
yeah, okay. Well, Jay, if you'd like to join us in the chat, clarify that for us. Otherwise, we're moving on to Save to Serve. Question: if I have a home that is paid off,
Yes.
how can I leverage that to my benefit?
So the home that's paid off as of right now, you have nothing in first position. And your home is appreciating and improving, but you have zero ability to leverage any of that growth inside your home. So what you would do is you would go to the bank and ask for a line of credit. And in this case, any line of credit that they would provide to you would be in first position. So you don't have to ask for a first position line of credit because as of today, there's nothing in first position. You owe nothing to the bank. So the bank would see this as, here's an opportunity to put her in handcuffs. So they would be
Hmm.
excited about offering you some line of credit. And again, anything they offer you would be placed in first position. So you don't have to ask because there's nothing currently in first position. So again, I think it's just as simple as going to your bank of choice and going through that process if that's something you choose. But before I do that, my question to you is, what's the goal? My question to you is understanding what your goal is and what your objective is for this line of credit so that you have a path forward versus, hey, I'm gonna just go get it because I can. Um, I'd identify, laying out what that criteria would look like so you can understand how much you should get. When they're offering you these interest rates, hey, do those rates fit inside of your plan based off the amount of cash flow you have, and how at risk are you placing yourself in this process?
And sometimes you have to start where you are. Sometimes it is less about does this interest rate, if that's what you qualify for, and you got to start somewhere.
Good
It's
point.
more important that you do start and start
Point.
building up credits so that you can improve your terms than to just not ever start at all. So I just don't want to discourage anybody there. Ryan Richardson is in the chat and he has a great question. What kind of funds do I need to start a leveraged IUL?
So I'll call it any earned income can start an IUL from the perspective of any money that you make with the job that you have, any savings, any, I'll call it liquidated assets can be used. Because the cool part about IULs or most cash value life insurance policies is you're funding it with after tax dollars because you're putting it in a vehicle that's, I'll call it tax advantage, which means what's growing inside is growing tax deferred. Ultimately, when you leverage money from it, it's that leverage dollar amount is a tax-free dollar amount. So when it comes to taking income, you're also building basically a Roth vehicle that will allow you to be able to access your income penalty-free, tax-free, unlike traditional retirement accounts. So any earned income can be used to fund an IUL. I'll throw something in here that Ryan didn't ask, but this usually comes behind that. Hey, I've got this 401k from a previous employer. Can I take the money from this 401k and dump it into this IUL? Usually that's the question that comes behind that. And the key piece to remember about life insurance based products are life insurance based products function under a different IRS code than qualified dollars like IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, government 457 plans, etc. So, can you take qualified dollars and move that into an IUL or use that to fund an IUL? You cannot. But if you structure yourself properly, you may be able to leverage or borrow against some of those qualified dollars to be able to fund it. So, if you want to talk more about that, we can. And again, I know, Ryan, you didn't ask that question, but usually that question comes right after that. So,
Yeah, well, you put that
words.
question right in front of Charles's question. Charles wants to know, so if
You're muted, sweetheart.
Can you hear me now?
You're still muted, sweetheart.
What? Um,
I'll read the question though. Mr.
why
Taylor,
am
welcome back.
why am I on
Can't hear you
here?
at all. Mr. Taylor, welcome back. I'll read the question. So, and you can work on that, sweetheart. I'll take care of this.
You work on
So,
listening better because everyone else can hear me, right, guys?
yeah, you're saying words, and I'd rather you use sign language. But you're cute though. And again, Mr. Taylor, it's been a while. I hope you're doing okay. So I'll read it. So if first year's contribution to an MPI is 50,000, and second year's contribution is also, or I guess that's could, and the second year contribution is also, could an additional 50,000 then be added in year 6? If so, would the same leverage be applied? Okay, so there's a lot there. So let's say you're putting in $50,000 in year 1 and year 2. At year 3, everything from year 1 gets added to year 3. But what was your MEC limit? If you're only putting in $50,000 in year 1 and year 2, your MEC limit is $50,000. So at year 3, when we go to dump in everything from year 1, we need to create that space. So we need to jump your policy. So we'll jump your policy at year 3. At year 6, if you wanted to add even more than that, if you wanted to do something greater than that, you have the ability to do so. All we have to do is make sure you're still healthy to be able to create that room. Now, there are some other factors that has to play in there, like what is your max insurability? We need to make sure we're not exceeding some other factors. But the moral of the story is, yes, we can do that every year. As a matter of fact, we can make any adjustments we want. It may require an exam in some cases. It may not require an exam in others. But the moral of the story is you have the autonomy and the flexibility to do what you want when you need to. Good question.
Okay. Can you hear
You
me
back,
now?
sweetheart?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I don't hear you at all.
Can you make sure that your earplugs are plugged in?
Okay. Maybe it's me. It's not you. I don't know.
Yeah, everybody's saying it's you, not me. We'll review this later. I'll play the replay for him so that we can just recap on how dead wrong he was in this moment so that I can take a win for the losses I've been having in Instagram. Just going to cycle through a few of these. You can hear, they can hear me. It's you, not me. Sorry. Hashtag sign language. Hashtag he doesn't even know sign language. We don't even like to play charades anymore because that's why, obviously, Donnell, you're not right this time.
Got me.
Hashtag petty. Okay. All right. So we have
this
one.
time I'm not right. So I'm the only one that can hear you. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's you, not me. So we'll replay this later for you. Okay. Here's the point, since clearly we got to reset something. So, you know what is tax-free? What I was going to say is, what is tax-free? What grows without interest? What is truly yours to own? It can be as big as you want it to be. You can start today. It costs absolutely nothing to start. And it's your goal. It's starting with your goal. There's a sentence that we use, a question that we use here in our community. We all have, it's infectious. We're using it with our families. This has become a mantra, and we hope that this is as powerful in your home as it has been in our home. The question has been labeled a one-sentence solution, and this story is exactly why. So we're going to share with you, and then we're going to spin for the boat.
In 1998, a British rowing team dreaming of the Olympic gold found themselves ranked 7th. Their focus had always been on the competition day, but they realized the keys to reaching their highest potential were hiding in the decisions that they'd make over those next 2 years.
Faced with two obvious choices, continue their current path and expect the same result, or give up, they discovered a third transformative option. They united under one guiding question: will it make the boat go faster? Every decision, every action was weighed against this mantra. If the answer was yes, they could or would have to do it.
If the answer was no, it was forbidden, non-negotiable. Prior to the competition, this team was doubted and ridiculed, but no one knew what they had been doing. And once they hit the water, they were nearly unrecognizable, achieved their pinnacle, and won the gold. So we ask you,
What is your goal? What are you willing to do to achieve it?
will your story feel unrecognizable, even to you? Are you willing to light your beacon and stay focused, stay committed? Is your story non-negotiable, or are you waiting to find out how you ranked? Your financial future is not a game. You are only competing with yourself and those in the boat with you, your family and the many generations to come.
Will this make the boat go faster? A sounding alarm, a beacon of clarity amidst turbulent life decisions.
It's not just about speed, but direction, purpose, and an unwavering commitment. Every choice, every sacrifice aimed at the goal.
The first agreement this team made was to become fully self-directed, making their health their wealth, adopting a new perspective on their time and freedom, and the decisions they could fully control to reach their goal.
Will we make your boat go faster? That is our pledge to you. Our mission is to arm you with knowledge, strategies, and insights to ensure that not only you reach the goal, but you do so long before your race is over.
Okay, here we go. Whoops, I should have had this. See, these tech issues. Such a bop, right? Shout out to the creator of this bop. Okay, we got people coming in. I see lots of people, their names. Spin, are you ready? Who's getting a boat? And he can hear me now, by the way.
Sometimes.
He's like, can we have this feature all the time where I just suddenly can't hear you? Not so basic, Deb! It's your day today. Wow, look at you. Look at you, Deb. Okay. All right. So if you won, got to put it up on the screen. If you won, you go here, selfdirected.info/live or /winner, and tell us where to send it. And we have an extra special surprise now to send. So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to feedback. Okay, we'll just send one more, okay? We're only supposed to send one at a time now. Because we'll tell you later why. We'll tell you on Sunday why, but we'll still give them Emoji Dinosaur! Thanks for tuning in! Wow, I love it! Okay, you gotta claim it to win it. So if you won one before and you didn't claim it, that's okay, but you have to claim it. That's the whole point. All right. Well, we have had a jam-packed stream full of information. This is the 5th different way that you can pay off your home fast using leverage, using the leverage you already have. We have not attributed anyone else in any of these examples to having more income. But as I was saying in the beginning, why is it this or that, right? Why can't it be both? Imagine how this timeline could have changed if you would have been able to add more income. But imagine what it will be like if you don't have enough income in 10, 15, or 20 years. And that's where we're headed. So if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, please like this, subscribe, and stick around. We are definitely the this and that channel. We are talking about crushing debt, and we are talking about building wealth, and we are doing it at the same time. We know that it's possible because this is our story. This is how we did it. And so instead of riding off into the sunset, we believe in the each one teach one method. We have a whole community, a strong community that is building, and they are out there teaching their own communities and their own families these exact same things. Don't wait until you got to the top. Reach back and grab someone else and bring them with you. That is what this is all about. We grow farther and faster when we grow together. We fully believe that. So on that note, if you didn't come from a wealthy family,
you can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
So stay tuned.
Stay protected.
Stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique.
And I'm Donnell.
And our goal is to help you
get self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources, including a whole, over 100 live streams just like this that are packed with case studies and step-by-step instructions on how someone achieved their goal. Even the ones right inside of our community, we have shared their stories too. We hope that this serves you, and we are here Wednesdays and Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. This always messes me up. 9 p.m. Eastern time, and all the times in between, okay? So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. Please come back and hang out with us. Thank you so much to our chat fam. We love you, love you, love you. And you guys really have asked amazing questions. You help other people learn when you jump in the chat and ask the questions. And we hope to see you in there on Sunday. Until then, guys, thanks for tuning in.
Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get self-directed.
Self-directed.